Welcome to the Fearful Fright series, where we will be reading with our favorite green ghoul, Grimmer. Now sit back and enjoy this twisted tale. Today our story is called The Black Tide. The village of Greyhaven Point sat where the cliffs broke into jagged teeth along the Atlantic coast. No tourists stayed long. The air always smelled faintly of iron, even when the tide was low. The gulls never landed on the water. And at night, the ocean sometimes breathed. People who grew up there didn't talk about it directly. They just followed rules. Never swim after sunset. Never fish on moonless nights. And if the tide turns black, lock your doors. Outsiders laughed. Until the summer the suffering began. Caleb Mercer had come to Greyhaven to start over. 34. Recently divorced. Sleep barely came anymore. He rented a weather-beaten cottage overlooking the water because the realtor promised quiet. The first night, the quiet woke him. Not silence. Listening. He opened his eyes at 2:13 a.m. to the sound of waves, stopping. The ocean outside his window had gone still, not calm, not flat, but unmoving, like frozen oil. Then came a long, wet inhale. Caleb sat up. The sound didn't come from the shore. It came from beneath it. Morning washed the fear away. He convinced himself it was wind over rocks. But the villagers were already gathered at the pier when he went for coffee. A fishing boat drifted in, engine still running. No one aboard. Inside they found Earl Donnelly, the oldest fisherman in town, curled against the cabin wall. His eyes were open wide enough to show the whites all around. No injuries. Except for something strange, his skin was wrinkled and pale, as if soaked in water for days. But he'd only been missing since midnight. Sheriff Marta Ruiz ordered the body taken away quietly. The townsfolk didn't cry. They looked tired. Like they had expected it. That night Caleb heard it again. The inhale. Closer. He stepped onto his porch. The water reflected no stars, only darkness thicker than the sky. And along the shoreline, shapes moved beneath the surface, long shapes sliding against the sand without breaking it. Then something rose just enough to disturb the surface. Not a fin. Not a head. More like a hand pressing upward from below a sheet. Caleb slammed the door and locked it. He didn't sleep. Deaths followed. A surfer dragged from shallow water in front of witnesses, no splash, just a sudden downward pull like gravity changed direction. A dog walker found kneeling at the shore, hands clawed bloody from gripping rocks while something pulled his legs toward the sea. And worst of all, they screamed about the voices. Each victim had heard someone calling from the water. Someone familiar. Someone they loved. Caleb confronted Sheriff Ruiz after the third death. "You know what's happening," he said. She studied him for a long moment. "You're new," she replied. "So you still think truth helps? People are dying." Her jaw tightened. "People have always died here." She took him to the cliffs beyond town, a narrow trail ending at a stone staircase carved centuries ago. At its base sat a blackened tide pool that never reflected light. "This town was founded by a ship crew that wrecked offshore," Ruiz said quietly. "They survived winter by pulling food from the sea when there was none." Caleb frowned. "Fishing?" "No." Her voice lowered. "They made a bargain." The water trembled. "They promised suffering in exchange for survival. Pain feeds it. Grief feeds it. Fear feeds it. As long as the sea eats, the town lives." Caleb felt cold despite the sun. "And when outsiders come?" Ruiz looked away. "It hungers more." That night the tide turned black. Every house shuddered. Candles burned in windows. Caleb alone stood at the shore, unable to resist the pull in his chest. The voice calling him was his ex-wife, Lena. Soft. Forgiving. "I miss you," the ocean whispered in her tone. He stepped forward into the freezing water. Something brushed his ankle, smooth and warm like skin, but far too large. He froze. Another voice layered beneath hers. Hundreds of voices. All pleading. All suffering. All drowning endlessly. Then the surface opened. A massive shape rose, not fully visible, just ridges of flesh stretching beneath water like a moving cliff. Pale human shapes were embedded across its body, mouths open in silent screams, eyes rolling beneath translucent skin. They weren't dead. They were still alive inside it. Feeding it. The creature didn't eat flesh. It ate agony. Caleb stumbled back onto the sand, vomiting. Behind him stood the townspeople. Silent. Watching. You brought it attention, Ruiz said calmly. What are they? He whispered. Our founders, she said. And everyone since who tried to leave. His stomach dropped. You said it feeds on outsiders. She shook her head slowly. It feeds on those who resist belonging. Hands grabbed him from behind. The townsfolk held him gently, almost kindly, as the tide crawled forward like living tar. We don't sacrifice people, she said softly. We keep them. The water touched his feet. Pain exploded through his body, not physical, memories ripping open inside his mind. Guilt, heartbreak, regret, loneliness, every emotion magnified until he couldn't breathe. The sea drank his suffering. He felt himself sinking without moving. As darkness closed over his eyes, he heard Sheriff Ruiz whisper. You'll stop hurting soon. You'll help the rest of us stop hurting too. Weeks later, tourists returned to Greyhaven Point. The ocean sparkled peacefully. Gulls landed again. And sometimes, if someone stood quietly at night, they could hear voices beneath the waves, not screaming anymore. But calling gently. Inviting them to come closer. Because the sea had learned something new from Caleb Mercer. Hope tastes even sweeter than despair.